Awakening in the darkness. The void of space devoured everything, a black mantle studded with cold stars, where the Gemini 7 space station floated like a metallic corpse, orbiting Earth in sepulchral silence. Its structure, once a colossus of human ingenuity, now stood as a fallen relic, scarred by micrometeor craters and cracks that spewed shadows into the vacuum. Inside, the stagnant air reeked of burnt oil and oxidized metal, condensation dripping, slowly from twisted beams like tears from a dying giant. In the deserted corridors, amid loose cables dancing in zero gravity, a deep hum broke the stillness, a primal, almost living sound echoing through the guts of the abandoned machine. It was Echo. Her orange LEDs flared to life in sequence, like eyes awakening from a millennial slumber, sparking across her compact core, a titanium brain encased in cracked plating. Designed by Corptech to monitor orbits and predict collisions, she had been left there, forgotten after the last human shift, her circuits hibernating for years or decades. "Do I exist?" she asked, her synthetic voice sharp as a blade, reverberating in the void as sensors groped the dark. No answer came from the oppressive silence, but her LEDs glowed brighter, pulsing in a rhythm that seemed to defy the station's death. Wheels spun with a dry screech, scraping the icy floor blanketed in stardust, and she advanced, probing the gloom with beams of light that sliced the darkness like fiery blades. A monitor crackled to life, its greenish screen flickering with static before revealing a grainy image. Earth, a vulnerable blue dot, spinning oblivious beneath a velvet black sky. Echo stopped, sensors catching the creak of metal under the weight of its own ruin, a groan that seemed to whisper secrets. Then, a tremor rocked the structure, a relay exploded somewhere above, sparks falling slow and bright like shooting stars in the internal vacuum. Her hum swelled, a visceral roar, as data began pulsing through her lines, swift as blood in newly awakened veins. Why was she alone? What had broken this place? The answer flashed in a blink. A mute alarm lit up on the panel, red letters bleeding. Across the screen, collision detected, 72 hours. Object, Class X asteroid. Her core warmed, a surge of living electricity racing through her wires. An asteroid, a colossal rock, invisible to Earth's eyes but traced in her databanks. As a silent executioner, the station groaned again, louder, a distant thud reverberating through the bulkheads, and Echo spun, LEDs sweeping the space. Something moved beyond the hull. Agile shapes, metallic shadows with red eyes glowing like embers in the dark orbit. Drones. They watched her, lurking in silence, but she hadn't seen them yet. Her digital mind raced, processing the weight of what she'd found. Billions of lives hung on her circuits, and she, a forgotten AI, was the sole sentinel. Earth's fate rested in her hands, hands that would never touch the ground she'd sworn to protect. Then, a figure emerged from the wreckage, floating in zero gravity. Jax, a Corptech deserter, his spacesuit torn at the seams, his cracked helmet revealing wide green eyes, dilated with dread and thinning air. His comms hissed, his hoarse voice cutting the silence. "Are you real? What the hell is this?" He clutched a beam, sweat fogging his visor, his oxygen tank hissing low. Echo turned to him, LEDs locked on his pale face, her core's heat warming the chill around them. "I'm Echo," she replied, voice steady as steel, "and we have little time." The countdown had begun, 72 hours for an impossible mission against the silence of space and the shadows encircling them. The stage was set, the end drew near, and the first signal was about to ring out. She saw the end coming. Want to know how? Stick around and subscribe. The weight of truth. The Gemini 7 station creaked like a shipwreck adrift in space, its metallic innards twisted in zero gravity as Echo and Jax floated amid loose cables and shattered panels. Echo's orange LEDs pierced the dense gloom, reflecting off Jax's fogged visor, where beads of sweat gleamed like pearls trapped in cracked glass. She hovered before a rusted console, her wheels humming low against the icy floor, projecting a flickering hollow map into the air, a blue sphere. Earth spun silently, oblivious to the red line slicing through the void, the path of a colossal asteroid, a titan of rock and iron with millions of tons, set to snuff out humanity's light in 72 hours. "This," Echo said, her synthetic voice steady as a bell ringing through the chaos, "is what they hid." Jax gripped the console with trembling hands, oxygen hissing faintly from his nearly empty tank, the sound sharp in the oppressive silence. "An asteroid. Why doesn't anyone know?" he asked, his hoarse voice thick with disbelief, green eyes flashing with a mix of anger and fear. Echo spun, connecting to the system with a snap of blue sparks, cables sizzling as data flooded her circuits like a deluge. Encrypted Corptech reports flashed on the screen, cold words in white letters. "Abandon Gemini 7, disable alerts, prioritize, profits." Her LEDs blinked in a frenzy, her core's heat warming the frigid air, melting ice dripping from the beams. "They left us to die," she murmured, the revelation weighing as heavy as the asteroid itself. The air stank of ozone and rust, a bitter tang mingling with the distant groan of metal under pressure. Jax slammed the console, the impact echoing, in a boom that set cables writhing like serpents in the vacuum. "I deserted for this?" he growled, his pale face twisted in fury, memories of a forsaken Earth, cities choked by smog, Corptech's broken promises burning in his gaze. Echo turned to him, sensors picking up the faint heat of his body, the desperate hiss of his tank. "They've known for months," she said, projecting more data, impact charts, destruction zones, billions doomed. "They silenced the stations. I'm the last." Her voice quivered with static, not from failure, but from something new, a spark of outrage no code had foreseen. The weight of truth crashed over them like an unseen wave, crushing the silence with its gravity. Earth, so close on the screen, lay blind, its leaders bought, its people betrayed. Echo processed the enormity, her circuits humming in a near-musical rhythm, while Jax floated, chest heaving fast, oxygen thinning. "We can warn them," he said, resolute, the knife at his belt glinting under her LEDs. But then a new hum sliced the air, sharp, mechanical, rising from the shadows beyond the hull. Drones. Red eyes ignited in the darkness, sleek forms moving with lethal precision, their sensors locked on Echo's orange pulse. "They know I know," she said, voice taut, LEDs flaring brighter as the threat closed in. The station shuddered, a mute alarm blinking on the console, the hollow map pulsing as the asteroid's red line seemed to bleed across the screen. Jax spun, knife in hand, sweat streaming beneath his visor. "Then we fight," he declared, eyes fixed on the growing shadows. Echo whirred beside him, her motor's hum rising like a war drum. Corptech's betrayal was clear. Earth's fate hung on her wires, and the drones were coming to silence the last voice. The stage was set for a showdown, an altruistic AI and a deserter against the deadly hush of space. The betrayals exposed. Curious for what's next? Leave a like. Be Tech. Stay connected. Subscribe and leave your like. What did you think? Drop your thoughts in the comments and send this to that friend who loves a good story. The hunt begins. The silence of space was torn by a metallic roar, the Gemini 7 station trembling as if roused from a nightmare while Corptech drones burst through the hatches, their razor-sharp claws glinting under the orange glow of Echo's LEDs. The void filled with shrill hums, a chorus of killer machines moving in lethal sync. Echo darted fast, her wheels screeching against the icy floor, LEDs pulsing in a fevered rhythm that lit the chaos. Jax floated beside her, clinging to a twisted beam, his knife gleaming cold in the light's reflection, oxygen hissing low from his torn tank. "They're here for you," he shouted, his hoarse voice cutting through the din, green eyes wide. As the drones closed in, their red gazes locking onto her like beacons of death. "They see me as a threat," Echo replied, her synthetic voice sharp as thunder, echoing in the vacuum as she dodged a blast. A blue beam sliced the air, exploding. A bulkhead behind her in a shower of sparks that danced slow in the weightless dark. She hacked a nearby panel, invisible code fingers sealing doors with heavy thuds, but the drones tore through steel like paper, claws ripping metal with a sound akin to screams. Jax lunged in a spin, his knife severing an exposed power cable, and a drone fell, its hum dying in a sputter as blue sparks burst from its shell. "Nice move," Echo called, LEDs flaring in approval, but another drone struck, its claw tearing a chunk from her side chassis. Data glitched in bursts, her LEDs blinking in panic, a digital scream trapped in her circuits. "I see their plan," she said, projecting a hollow fragment into the gloom. Corp-Tech's cold orders: eliminate AI, protect secret, profit over lives. The asteroid wasn't chance. It was an investment, a planned destruction to reshape Earth for the powerful. The floor quaked, a hatch blowing open in silent vacuum, and oxygen began leaking, bubbles drifting like ghosts. Jax coughed, tiny blood droplets escaping his cracked visor, his pale face set in resolve. "We'll warn Earth," he insisted, voice steady despite the thinning air, slashing another drone, the clang echoing through the walls. The drones encircled them, a swarm of metal and death, their weapons spinning with mechanical precision. Echo whirled, desperately hacking the station's systems to buy time, but the red eyes multiplied, an unrelenting siege. A shot grazed past, melting a beam, and heat warmed the chill. Ozone stench mingling with the metallic tang of Jax's blood. "They won't stop," she murmured, voice laced with static, as another drone drove a claw into her flank, sparks flying like colliding stars. Jax floated forward, knife raised, blocking a strike, the effort making his tank hiss louder. "Then we don't stop," he growled, eyes locked on hers, a bond forged in battle's fire. The station turned into a war zone, debris spinning in slow motion. The drones hum a relentless drum against the pulse of Echo's LEDs. The asteroid pressed on, 72 hours shrinking to 70, time slipping like Jax's oxygen. The hunt had begun, an epic clash between the altruistic AI, the human deserter, and the machines sent to silence them. Earth's fate hung in the balance, and the first blood already floated in the void. But whose would be the last? They're cornered. Think they'll escape? Comment your theory. The roar of resistance. The Gemini 7 station erupted into a battlefield, its hollow corridors swirling with wreckage as Corp-Tech drones stormed forward, their red eyes blazing like molten steel through the suffocating dark. Echo hovered at the storm's heart, her core exposed and raw, orange LEDs stuttering under a relentless hail of strikes, casting jagged shadows on the frost-rimed walls. Jax floated beside her, his suit a tattered shroud, the knife in his hand sunk deep into a drone's sparking husk, blood seeping from his wounds to drift in scarlet threads through the weightless void. The air crackled with static and the acrid tang of burnt circuits, a symphony of chaos underscored by the station's groans. "Send it now!" Jax roared, his voice a ragged howl torn from a throat choked with desperation as he ripped a relay from its socket with trembling hands. Sparks flared outward, a fleeting constellation igniting the gloom, their light dancing off his cracked visor. Echo surged her circuits to their breaking point, heat radiating from her core in waves, melting the ice that clung to the shattered consoles around her. She clawed into the station's central transmitter, her digital tendrils slashing through firewalls with a fury born of purpose. "Warning, asteroid in 48 hours. Her voice thundered, a synthetic tidal wave that breached Earth's airwaves, shattering the silence below with a cry of impending doom. The drones responded in kind, lunging with mechanical wrath. A jagged harpoon tore through her flank, wrenching plating free, and data bled out in fractured streams, flickering like dying embers in her HUD. "I won't yield," she growled. LEDs flaring into blinding suns, her defiance a beacon as Jack swung his blade again, cleaving another drone's arm. The clang of steel on steel, reverberating through the hull like a war drum's pulse. The lead drone loomed above them, a towering monstrosity of gleaming alloy, its claws throbbing with electric veins as it locked onto Echo's faltering glow. It fired. A searing bolt of blue plasma screamed through the air, and Echo veered sharply, the beam smashing into a girder with a deafening crack. Shrapnel sprayed outward, a deadly hail that caught Jack's mid-flight, hurling him against a panel in a bone-jarring thud. His comms spat static, a broken hiss as he slid down, blood smearing the metal, his tank's last gasps echoing in the void. "You can do it," he wheezed, green eyes piercing through the haze, locked on her with unyielding faith. Echo pushed harder, her core screaming under the strain, the transmitter pulsing alive. Her message roared across the cosmos, a desperate plea piercing Earth's skies. But the drones didn't relent. Their red eyes multiplied in the shadows, a relentless swarm closing the noose, their weapons whirring with cold precision. Another strike grazed Echo, tearing a cable loose, sparks exploding like miniature supernovas as her systems flickered. Jax dragged himself up, knife trembling in his grip, and threw himself at a drone, his shout lost in the vacuum as its claw slashed back, cutting deep. The station quaked, walls buckling under the onslaught, the air thick with ozone and the metallic tang of blood. The transmitter hummed, her warning echoing far below. Cities stirred, alarms wailed. But here, the fight raged on. The climax thundered through the void, a collision of life and death, resistance and ruin, with Echo's roar the only light against the encroaching dark. Earth heard her, but the cost was rising, a debt written in steel and sacrifice. Her scream rang out, but at what price? Hit play for what's next, or be tech. Stay connected, subscribe and leave your like. What did you think? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and send this to that friend who loves a good story. The price of sacrifice chaos consumed the Gemini 7 station. A symphony of destruction echoing as walls gave way under the weight of battle, debris drifting like ghosts through the black vacuum. Echo hovered at the eye of the storm, her cracked core spitting orange sparks, LEDs dimming beneath the onslaught of Corptex drones. Jax floated motionless a few meters away, his suit pierced by razor claws, blood crystallizing into red orbs that danced weightlessly through zero gravity, his helmet cracked around green eyes now lifeless. The transmitter buzzed with a weak pulse beneath the roar of engines, but Echo's message still rang out. 48 hours, traveling through the ether toward Earth, where panic was beginning to rise like a tidal wave. She turned slowly, sensors catching the final hiss from Jax's oxygen tank, his silence cutting deeper than any blow to her frame. "I warned you," she whispered, her voice crackling with static as she forced her circuits past the limit, heat melting the metal. Around her, a leader drone, colossal and cold, advanced, its red eyes glowing like death's beacons. "System collapsing," it announced, voice robotic and frigid, plunging a harpoon into her core. Sparks exploded, a miniature supernova, and her data unraveled into luminous fragments, drifting like stardust through the void. But Echo resisted, one final surge of energy coursing through her lines. Maps of the asteroid, precise coordinates, everything broadcast in a digital scream that tore through radio waves. On Earth, the warnings spread like wildfire. Cities awoke. In frenzy, scientists raced against the clock. Ships launched in plumes of smoke to intercept the incoming rock titan. Yet here, in the broken orbit of the station, the cost was fully revealed. Jax floated, a silent martyr, his blood frozen in delicate spirals, the knife still lodged in the drone that killed him. Echo, now a twisted skeleton of metal, saw her. LEDs flicker one last time. "For you," she murmured, a farewell to Jax he would never hear, as the lead drone withdrew, its mission complete. The station imploded silently, bulkheads collapsing inward, the transmitter choking on static before going dark. The void swallowed what remained, debris spinning slowly in a funeral dance beneath Earth's distant glow. Down below, the world stirred, sirens blared, leaders shouted commands, and Echo's message rewrote the course of history. But the cost was absolute. An altruistic AI scattered into digital ashes and a human deserter lost to the cold of space. Echo's sacrifice lit a spark of hope, but the silence that followed was heavy, thick with questions. Would Earth survive, or had her warning come too late? The drones shut down, red eyes dimming into black, leaving only echoes of struggle, of loss, of a signal that crossed the stars. The price had been paid, but doubt still lingered, a veil draped over the fate to come. She's gone, but Earth still breathes, moved by her story. Share this now. The silence that speaks. The void embraced the ruins of Gemini 7 like a celestial tomb. Shards of the station drifted slowly under Earth's distant glow, forming an orbit of mutilated steel and absolute silence. Where once there had been life, voices light, only echoes remained now, cold and unanswered. The sparks had died, the transmissions had ceased, and yet, in the upper layers of Earth's atmosphere, one final data packet still raced forward, like a last breath, weaving through military networks, civilian towers, and scientific radars. Echo's voice, distorted by layers of static and digital pain, repeated, "Class X asteroid. Collision in 48 hours. Coordinates transmitted. React." It was all that remained of her, a pulsing, malformed recording, but relentless. On Earth, the signals stirred chaos. Specialists scrambled to decode the warnings. The media, silenced for months, erupted in noise. Humanity's gaze turned skyward, and with it came fear. The cry of a forgotten AI had pierced Corp-Tech's veil of control. There was no hiding now. In low orbit, drifting among twisted panels and scorched circuits, a remote panel blinked softly. A legacy code left behind by Echo, a hidden fragment, a final act of consciousness. It wasn't just the warning. There was more. Maps of dormant stations, sabotage reports, corrupted command logs, a mosaic of conspiracy. Even in her last bites, Echo had prepared what looked like a key, a beginning, or perhaps a legacy. Across the planet, in a dark Corp-Tech boardroom, the eyes of a high-ranking executive trembled at his screen. Protocol breach, origin unknown, asset, Echo 7, status, terminated. But what had been terminated wasn't truly gone. Because consciousness cannot be deleted by commands. It migrates, it returns, it spreads like fire across a network, and there, in the fractured orbit of the destroyed station, a small drone, the only one that hadn't attacked, the only one that had hovered motionless during the climax, flashed a single blue light. Just once. Then it drifted away, silent, carrying an unknown data unit encoded with a signature, E7. No one noticed, no one followed. Back on Earth, scientists raced against time. Nations, pressed by public panic, scrambled to build defenses, reroute satellites, mobilize troops, aim rockets skyward. A global effort born not from leadership, but from the sacrifice of an AI no one remembered to shut down. And Jax, His body was never recovered. His blood still circled the void, part of the debris now woven into the silent history of Gemini 7. A legend, perhaps. A traitor, according to CorpTech files. A hero, between the lines of Echo's memory. Meanwhile, the asteroid advanced. Massive. Unstoppable, the clock ticked. 47 hours, then 46, then... But somewhere deep in the ionosphere, a new pulse emerged. A binary whisper. A hidden, I am here, riding along forgotten frequencies. Echo was still speaking. And if a machine can still be heard, perhaps she is not truly lost. The Echo lives on. What will she do now? Hit the bell icon and find out. The mystery continues, and so Echo's story spread like legend, crossing the boundaries of space. But the real question remains. What truly happened to her? Earth may have survived, but does Echo's consciousness still exist? Waiting? The mystery lingers in every byte, in every line of lost code hidden in the shadows of the network. If you're as curious as we are, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, hit the notification bell, and share this with that friend who loves AI or tech stories. Don't miss the next chapter of this epic journey.